CookieSwirlC. The orange glow of the evening sun was setting on the night of Halloween as four friends, Eli, Jules, Micah, and Nova, were lounging in the living room of Jules' apartment. Eli looked out the window, watching as young trick-or-treaters gathered on the sidewalk in preparation for a night of gathering candy. Jules walked over and peered out the window behind him. She saw two girls dressed as ladybugs giggling with each other as their mothers stood by and talked to one another. "Should we watch another scary movie?" Nova asked from the sofa as she flipped through the different movie options on TV. "You know what I think we should do?" The three of them turned towards Micah, who was sitting at the small dining room table, picking up and playing around with the bowl of Halloween candy. "Let's go trick-or-treating." Nova scoffed out loud, then saw that Micah was serious. "Wait, you're serious?" He twisted open a Tootsie Roll and took a long, chewy bite. "Yeah, come on. Think about it. We haven't done it in years, not since we were little kids." Eli laughed. "Yeah, but we're not kids. We have jobs. We can just buy the candy we want now." Micah chewed the candy as he spoke, his eyes bright with excitement. "Yeah, but the fun of trick-or-treating is the surprise. You never know what kind of candy haul you're going to get, and it's nostalgic." The last word strangely hit Jules' heart. Micah smiled. "I want to feel like a kid again." Jules looked back out the window. The ladybugs were now walking down the sidewalk hand in hand with their mothers, off to start trick-or-treating. The orange sun had now dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees outside. "I say let's go." Eli smiled wide. Nova stood up and tossed the remote on the sofa after powering off the TV. "Let's go trick-or-treating!" A slight breeze was starting to pick up outside as the four friends made their way out. Jules started to unfold the white bedsheet she had tucked under her arm after she locked the door of her apartment. Her friends had already pulled on the white sheets she had given them. Good thing she had extra sheets, she thought to herself. She had made a mental note to stop by Walmart again to pick up more cheap sheets to replace the ones her and her friends had now ruined by cutting large ghost eye holes in. She was surprised how fun it was to throw on this quirky makeshift costume. All four of them looked great as ghosts. Nova had even taken a few photos before they started on the first house of their trick-or-treating journey. The four friends had the best time running from door to door, filling up their pillowcases with candy. No one even asked if they were too old to be out trick-or-treating. Each person at the houses just sweetly placed the candy in each of the ghost pillowcases, wishing them a happy Halloween. It had been a few hours since they had been out. The chill in the air started to fade, but the night grew darker with every house they went to. They all agreed to go down a few more streets before they would return back for the night with their candy haul. Jules noted that they had been walking quite a bit in the neighborhoods. She didn't even recognize the streets. This was definitely an area of town she had never even driven down before. As much fun as they were having, their choices in houses started to thin. Only a few houses had their lights on. Most of them were off since it was getting late. "Look at that house at the end!" Micah pointed. There was an old house that looked extra dark in the moonlight. It was the only house with a light on this street. But the light bulb was not a warm yellow glow. It was red. Eli looked at his friends. "Should we go there? Make it the last house of the night? Come on!" Nova and Micah started running toward the house. The house had no decorations, only the blood-red light bulb that could be heard humming from the sidewalk where the friends stood. The house was built slightly further away from the other homes on the street too, like it stood on its own. Micah stepped forward towards the front door and pointed up to the red house light. "That looks like a welcome trick-or-treater's light to me." Nova reached out and pressed the cracked doorbell. The sound that rung out in the house sounded like an old grandfather's clock echoing inside. They stood there, waiting. Then the door cracked open. "No, Micah, don't!" Jules reached for her friend, but it was too late. He already had his head peeking inside the house. "Hello?" The house was dark inside. No lights were on, but strangely, it smelled like candy corn. Micah opened the door wide. The floorboards creaked as they all stepped inside. One by one, they slipped out of their ghost costumes, their eyes darting around the house. "Oh, look!" Micah quickly walked over to the dining room table. Right in the center was a large sterling silver bucket of candy. The candies were oddly shaped, like little squares with pinched corners giving them a sharp edge look. Each candy was wrapped in a copper, holographic, metallic foil. A small note had been placed by the bucket that read, "Take only one." Micah smiled at his friends, then turned quickly, grabbing a handful of the copper candy and throwing it into his pillowcase. "Come on, let's go!" He ran for the door, his friends following. The door slammed shut just as they reached for the handle. Their hearts pounded as they stared at the closed door in the darkness, and that's when they heard it. They all turned in unison as the floorboards at the top of the stairs creaked in the dead silence. There, standing in the dark at the top of the stairs, was a silhouette of someone standing there, watching them. Jules screamed, "Open the door! Open the door! Open the door!" She could feel the air getting heavy in the darkness, as if it was closing in on them, as if they were out of time. Nova reached for the handle of the door, and with a hard pull, it opened. They all bursted out of the house into the crisp fall air. They ran without stopping, pillowcases slapping their legs as they all raced back to the familiarness of their neighborhood. They all slowed down to catch their breath. They all agreed that they had never seen that house before. Micah opened his pillowcase and pulled out one of the strange-shaped copper candies. Jules squinted at the candy in the dark, trying her best to identify it under the light of the street lamp. Micah quickly unwrapped the candy and popped it into his mouth. They all gasped. "Micah, what are you doing?" Nova's eyes bulged in disbelief. "Have you never heard of inspecting Halloween candy before you eat it?" Micah shrugged and kept chewing. "He's probably fine. I never really checked candy in the past, and I've always been okay," Eli said, though his voice wavered. They watched as Micah swallowed the candy. A slight smile appeared in the corner of his mouth. "Micah, what's wrong?" Jules asked, afraid for her friend. It was the way he was happily smiling that made her feel uneasy. Micah just stood there, savoring the taste of the strange-shaped candy. Eli placed a hand on his friend's shoulder. "You okay?" "Yeah, it's just..." Micah rubbed his tongue over his teeth, still tasting the sugary treat. "What does the candy taste like?" Nova asked, frowning. Micah swallowed again. It tastes like memories." They all stared at Micah's giddy smile. "Like my old Halloween costume. The plastic mask I used to wear, the way it smelled inside, like the carpet in my childhood bedroom, like the apple juice my mom used to pack in my lunchbox." Micah's voice starts to trail off, sounding distant. Like the last time I was really happy." "Look!" Nova points to Micah's face. Even in the damp light of the street lamp, they can all see it. The color begins to drain from Micah's face, turning him transparent. He was starting to fade. I think I remember now." Micah smiles blissfully. "We have been to that house before." The last of his form flickered out into the darkness. The pillowcase of candy slips and drops to the ground. Micah vanishes. All that's left is a single copper wrapper, still warm, resting on the sidewalk. Jules screams, "What just happened? What just happened? Where is he?" Dark mascara smudges down Nova's wet cheeks. Eli picks up the pillowcase of candy and the candy wrapper. He uncrinkles it and looks on the inside of the foil. One word shimmers back at him. "Micah," he whispers. What? What do you mean?" Nova snatches the wrapper from Eli's hand. She stares at the letters as they shift into a new word. "It says Jules!" Nova drops the wrapper, not sure what to make of this. The copper foil curls like it's smiling on the pavement. All three of them stare at Jules' name on the wrapper. "What does it mean? What does it mean?" Nova sobs again, her voice shattering into a scream. I don't know. I don't know." Jules gasped, spiraling into a panic. Eli turned slowly to his friends. "We have to go into the house." Tears streamed down Nova's cheeks. "What? No!" Eli stares blankly at his friends, his eyes vacant. "You have to. It's calling you, Jules," he murmured. "I can't!" Jules screams through tears. Eli opens his candy bag and pulls out a copper candy and unwraps it. He looks at the inside of the wrapper and holds it up to his friends, staring at him, waiting to see what it says. "It's blank," Eli says as he looks down at the copper foil. Jules cries, afraid her name will appear magically again. Eli rolls the square chocolate between his thumb and finger, analyzing it. He gives the candy a slight squeeze. It gives slightly to the warm touch of his fingers, but he can feel a hard center, almost like a bead in the middle. Tranced, he raises the chocolate to his mouth and pops it in. Jules and Nova gasp. Eli starts chewing slowly, eyes unfocused. He swallows and starts to smile. Jules and Nova stare, frozen in the chilled air. Eli smiles wider as the color begins to fade from his body. Then silently, he vanishes. The copper wrapper flutters to the ground, landing face up. One word written, Eli. Nova bends down slowly and picks up the wrapper without a word. Her eyes tear up once again. Her name is now written in the shimmering copper ink. She takes off running without looking back at Jules sobbing on the sidewalk. "Wait!" Jules shouts as she tries to catch up with her friend. Nova races all the way back to the dark house without stopping. She stares up at the foreboding house. The red light still glows. The door is wide open. Jules pants hard, trying to catch her breath, trying to speak, trying to stop her friend, but they both know that they have no choice. They have to go back into the house. They huddle close to one another as they walk up the twisted walkway up to the front door. They hear the red light bulb humming as they approach the open door. I can't go in, Jules cries again, clutching Nova's arm. Come on, Nova urges her friend to step forward, but as they try to walk through the doorway, something invisible prevents them from walking through. Then they know. They can't enter until they each eat a piece of the candy. Nova and Jules freeze at the doorway, their hands trembling. The red light hums louder now, like it's breathing. Nova reaches into her pillowcase and pulls out a copper-wrapped square. Her fingers shake as she unwraps it. Inside, the foil is blank. It doesn't say anything, she whispers. Jules grabs her own piece of candy and stares at it, afraid to unwrap it. Nova looks at her, eyes wide. She pops the candy quickly into her mouth as she stares at Jules. She gasps, Nova! Nova chews slowly. Her eyes light up. Her voice softens. It tastes like my old bedroom. The glow-in-the-dark stars. The way I used to pretend they were real. Her face relaxes. It tastes like my mom's perfume. Like the smell of Halloween night. Like the last time I felt safe. She vanishes. Jules screams as she is left alone on the porch in the darkness. The wrapper falls to the ground. It says Jules. She's the last one. She unwraps her candy. The foil is blank. She hesitates, closes her eyes tight, then she eats it. She holds the candy in her mouth, refusing to chew. She feels herself drifting away, almost as if she's flying. Then she feels a tingle as the flavor of the candy begins to melt into her mouth, unleashing its nostalgia. The memories start to flood in. It tastes like the sound of my mom's laugh, like the plastic pumpkin I used to carry, like the way the air felt on Halloween night when I believed in magic. Jules feels herself moving forward. This time, the doorway lets her in. She keeps her eyes closed as she drifts into the darkness of the house. Afraid, she can feel herself resisting. She keeps the candy still pressed on the roof of her mouth. She refuses to open her eyes even though the sweet smell of candy corn is swirling around her. Her lips are trembling with fear. Tears are burning as they squeeze through her tightly pressed lids. Hot tears start streaming down her face. She can't hold back anymore. She screams again, but this time, not in fear. She's releasing all of the pressures of adulthood, all of the expectations, all the responsibility of growing up. She lets the melted candy slide down her throat, her eyes still closed. She feels a soft touch on her cheeks. Her eyes flutter open, softly. She can make out the blurry image of her mom, gently wiping her tears away. Mom? Jules squeaks out. Her mother's beautiful face comes into focus. Come on, sweetie. Her mother smiles sweetly at her. Jules looks around as the darkness melts into golden light. It's her old childhood home, warm and inviting. She's standing in the entryway of her old house, the worn green welcome mat crooked on the floor, just the way she remembered it. The walls are painted a soft buttercream yellow, and her childhood drawings are still hanging in mismatched frames on the wall. Her mother's hand is warm and steady as she leads her forward. The living room glows warmly. Plush cushions are piled on the couch like sleepy clouds. A crocheted blanket, the one Jules used to wrap around herself during thunderstorms, is folded neatly on the armrest. Old dolls with tattered hair sit in a wicker basket by the table where she used to play. In the kitchen, the smell of candy corn intensifies. The fridge still has magnets shaped like fruit and stars. On the counter, a bowl of candy sits beside a note in her mother's handwriting. For Jules, always. Her mother turns to her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. Jules breathes in deeply. The air tastes warm and syrupy, like bedtime stories and plastic pumpkins, like the version of herself she thought she'd lost. The morning sun streams brighter than ever through the windows of Jules' apartment, where all four of her friends wake up after their long night. There is a calm in the air. Micah rubs the sleep from his eyes, and he yawns. Oh, wow, what happened last night? Nova stirs awake from the sofa. I don't know, but I'm just happy it's morning, she sighs. Jules looks down at her freshly brewed coffee mug. The mug has an old faded photo of her mother and Jules as a child on it. It had been a gift she had given to her mom, who she hadn't spoken to in months. Not because there was any fallout between them, it's just they both have been really busy. Jules makes a mental note to call her later, just to say hi, to reconnect. Eli emerges from the hallway of the apartment, smiling. "What are you smiling about?" Jules asks playfully as she hands him a new mug and starts to pour him some coffee. He shrugs, watching the steam of the cup rise. "I just feel happy today." "That's what I said!" Nova sits up from the sofa, looking at her friends in the kitchen. "Like something changed." Micah nods, eyes drifting to the window. "I feel lighter. Like I'm unbothered, almost kid-like." They all sit together, sipping coffee and cocoa, letting the morning sun wrap around them like a blanket. Mugs clink as they laugh about the wild night they just had. They all nod and agree that it felt just like a dream. But something in them shifted. Something healed them. As they all sit in the kitchen together, no one notices the shiny copper candy wrapper on the floor just beneath the table. It glimmers in the morning light. Its empty wrapper face up with one last message. You remembered.